Hello, in today's video, you guys will be learning how to find the slope from a table and a graph. So to find the slope, we use the letter M. So this means slope, okay? So to find the slope from a table, slope really is just the change in the Y values over the change in the X values. Y is always on top, X is always on the bottom. So when we have a table, this first column will always represent the X. The second column will always represent the Y. The first thing that we want to do is select any two rows. So you could select this row and you could also select this row. It does not matter. Or you could select this first row and you could select the second row. It does not matter. You pick any two rows. Typically, I like to select the rows that have the smallest numbers. So I'm gonna stick with these first two. Now that I have my two rows selected, I'm gonna find a change in Y. So the way that we do this is we work from the bottom to the top. So out of these two rows, I'm working a Y value first because Y comes first. So the number that goes in the bottom will be 11. Then I'm going to work my way up to the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 11 minus 3. And so that's what goes on top. 11 minus 3. I'm finding the change. Okay. Then we do the same thing for the X values. So working from bottom to the top, I'm going to subtract 2 minus 0. 2 minus 0. And then once we have our values, now we're going to evaluate what it equals. So on the top part, we have 11 minus 3. 11 minus 3 is 8. Then on the bottom, we have 2 minus 0. 2 minus 0 is 2. Then always ask yourself, can I simplify this fraction? Can I simplify this fraction? So 8 divided by 2 would just be 4. So in this case, my slope would be equal to 4. And that's my answer. Now what we're going to investigate is, what if the table isn't in a vertical arrangement? What if it is horizontal like this? How do we solve problems that look like this? Now, when we're trying to find a slope from a table that is horizontal, it's the same thing as what we did before. So what I want to do is first highlight or identify two rows. In this case, it'd be two columns. So it'd be the first and second column that I'll be looking at. And then to find slope, we use M equals change of Y over change of X. So just a quick reminder. So this is change of Y over your change of X. Every time you're calculating change, so if you think about going to the store and you buy something, to calculate your change, you have to subtract. So we will be subtracting always when we're finding slope. So to find slope, now I need to find my change of Y. So my change of Y will be this second row. And literally just take one and subtract the other. So the first number that we see is a -2. So I'm writing -2. Then I see a minus sign. So I'm going to subtract a +1. So it'll be -2 minus a +1. Then sending for my x's. Okay. I'm going to do the first number that I see. Subtract the second number. So it'll be 1 minus 2. Notice that if I'm going in this direction, I also have to be going in the same direction for the x. If I'm going in the opposite direction, I also have to go in the opposite direction for the x. They both should be going towards the same direction. So once you have this set up right here, all you do is now just subtract. So for my y's, -2 minus 1, well, that's -3. And then for my x's, 1 minus 2 will be -1. Once you reach this point, always ask yourself, can I simplify? Well, -3 divided by -1 is a +3. So my M will be equal to +3, and that'll be my answer. Okay, now the next thing that we'll be talking about is finding slope from a graph. To find a slope from a graph, it's the same thing as far as we're using m. However, instead of change of y over change of x, it is rise over the run. So what we want to do is calculate the rise and the run of this graph. The first thing that we need to do is plot points on that blue line. Ideally, we want 2 points. However, it just can't be any 2 points. What we need is not just any point. We need a point that crosses this blue line on the grid perfectly. So I couldn't pick right here because it does not cross it perfectly. However, right there, it will cross perfectly. To kind of illustrate what I mean by this idea is view these grid lines as crosshairs. If you're playing a shooting game like Fortnite, imagine that these grid lines were crosshairs. Okay, so all these little grid lines where they cross are crosshairs. And you want to ask yourself, where would the grid lines or the crosshairs hit the blue line? So if these were my crosshairs. So if my crosshair was right there, I would miss the blue line. If I was right there, I would miss the blue line, so on and so forth. Right there, I would miss it. If I was up here, though, the crosshairs hit the blue line. So that's where I want to plot another point. So I want to just continue. And then the next point that it hits the blue line would be right there. So that's where I want to place my other points. So here's my other point. Once I have those 2 points, now your whole goal is to get from one point to the other point. So from one to the other by moving up, down, left, and right. So if I start off right here, I need to move up 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces. So I'm going to signify that by going up 4. And then my run, so now I'm right here, I need to move right 1, 2, 3 spaces. So I've moved right 3. So I have up 4. So if I have up 4, up is always positive, so it'd be positive 4. Right is positive, so it's positive 3. And so then my slope, my answer would be 4 over 3. Once you reach your answer, always double check to make sure that you cannot simplify. I cannot simplify 4/3, so that'll be my final answer. So now what you're going to do is you will complete the problems on R2, both front and back. Pretty much exactly what we did.